My parents called my children a hassle and refused to care for them. "Get them out of here," my mother demanded. So I took my kids, the vehicle I'd bought for them a month prior, and cut ties with my father. I always thought my parents cherished their time with their grandkids. My wife and I had an urgent work trip out of town and needed someone to watch our children for a week. My parents seemed like the obvious choice. They often bragged about how much they loved being grandparents. My mother posted pictures of the kids on social media, calling them her little treasures. My father would tell his buddies how thrilled he was to have grandchildren. Every time we visited, they put on a big show of doting on the kids. So when I asked if they could watch them, I expected no resistance. They agreed instantly, telling me to go and not stress about it. We dropped the kids off at their place, left everything they'd need, and headed out for our trip, feeling confident all was well. The first few days went fine. My mother sent short updates about the kids. They were eating properly. They played outside. They went to sleep on schedule. Everything seemed under control. But on the fifth day, her messages took a different tone. She started grumbling about how draining it was to have kids around all the time. She said my father was getting migraines and they hadn't had a moment's rest. I figured she was just letting off steam. Kids can be exhausting, but it was only for 2 more days. I didn't think much of it. Then the next morning, I saw a missed call from my mother. I called back right away and she immediately said, "You need to come get them. We can't handle this anymore." I thought she was kidding. I even chuckled. But she wasn't joking. "We didn't agree to this," she snapped. "They're too much." My body stiffened. A hassle? These were her grandkids. I asked if something was wrong, if the kids had acted out, or if there was an emergency. She just huffed. "We're too old for this," she said. "We're not your free childcare." I was stunned silent for a moment. I couldn't process what I was hearing. My parents, who always acted like the perfect, adoring grandparents, had abandoned my kids with a stranger because they were tired after a few days. I asked about the nanny they'd hired, trying to stay calm. My mother said she was a professional with solid reviews. That was all. They'd left my children with someone we didn't know without even asking me. I wanted to lose it, but I had no options. I called the nanny, verified she was legitimate, and made sure my kids were safe. I held back my fury until we got back. When we returned, I didn't go home first. I drove straight to my parents' house. I expected some remorse, some hint of regret. But when I walked in, they were lounging on the sofa, acting like nothing happened. My dad turned down the TV. My mom barely glanced at me. "So dramatic," she said. "It's not a big deal." I stared, waiting for an explanation. My dad sighed. "You're acting like we abandoned them," he said. "We got a nanny. You should be grateful." Something in me broke. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I turned, got in my car, picked up my kids, and went home. That was the last time I let them have any say in my life. But they didn't see what was coming. I didn't speak to them after that. I went home, unpacked, spent time with my kids, and tried to cool off. But the anger lingered. It wasn't just their actions, it was what they revealed. They saw my children as an inconvenience, something to toss aside when it didn't suit them. And the worst part? They didn't even think they were wrong. As soon as we landed, I drove straight from the airport to pick up my kids, not from my parents' house, but from the nanny they'd hired. A complete stranger they'd left my children with because they needed a break. At least the nanny seemed decent. She was professional and kind, and the kids were okay. But that wasn't the issue. The issue was that my parents had made a choice. And now, so had I the next day. My wife and I discussed it. She was just as furious, but suggested I sleep on it before acting. When I woke up, my mind was clear, and I knew what needed to happen. I wasn't going to beg them to be part of my kids' lives. If they saw them as a hassle, so be it. They wouldn't have to deal with that hassle again. I sent my mother a brief message. "We're done visiting. You're off babysitting duty." No anger. No blame, just facts. She didn't reply right away. Hours later, she responded. "Don't be absurd. We love the kids. We just needed a break. You're overreacting." I didn't answer. I let the silence speak. Days passed, and I expected an apology, an attempt to fix things. But instead, something else happened. I was at the store when my dad called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. He didn't bother with pleasantries. "Where's the car?" I frowned. "What? The car we let you use?" I was baffled. "The car I bought last month?" Silence. Then he scoffed. "Don't act clueless, it's in my name." I was stunned. "No, it's not." I'd paid for the car myself, signed the paperwork, and it was in my name. My father had no claim to it. He huffed. "We helped with the down payment." A total lie. They hadn't contributed a cent. Before I could respond, he went on. "We let you use it, and now we want it back. We don't think it's right for you to ignore us while driving something we helped provide." I laughed, not out of amusement, but disbelief at their nerve. You didn't pay a dime? That's not the point, he snapped. You owe us. My anger surged. Not only had they discarded my kids, but now they were trying to take something from me because I wouldn't bow to them. I stayed calm. If you think you own this car, take me to court. Then I hung up. An hour later, my mother texted. This is how you treat family after all we've done? That's when it clicked. This wasn't about the car. It wasn't even about the kids. It was about control. They were used to holding power over me, and now that I was standing my ground, they were scrambling. But I wasn't done. I thought they'd back off after I shut down their car nonsense. But my parents never respected boundaries. If guilt didn't work, they'd try something else. 2 days later, I came home from work and saw their car in my driveway. My stomach knotted. They hadn't warned me they were coming. I walked inside, and there they were, sitting in my living room. My wife stood by the kitchen, arms crossed, visibly furious. The kids were in the playroom, thankfully out of earshot. Before I could ask why they were there, my mom spoke. We need to talk. You're being unfair. I tossed my keys on the counter. Unfair? You can't just cut us off over one mistake. I stared at her. One mistake? We didn't mean it, she huffed. We were exhausted. We were overwhelmed. But we love our grandkids, and you're punishing us for nothing. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was their usual excuse. Whenever they did something hurtful, it was never their fault, just stress, a misunderstanding, or my overreaction. I shook my head. You left my kids with a stranger and act like I'm the issue. My dad chimed in. It wasn't a big deal. You're blowing it out of proportion. Then why are you here? They went quiet. That's when I realized. They weren't here out of guilt. They were here because they'd lost control. They were so used to me backing down, questioning myself, that they didn't know how to handle my resolve. I sighed. You're not going to guilt me into letting you walk over me again. My mother's face twitched. Fine, she grabbed her purse and stood. If you want to be stubborn, we'll see what happens when the will is read. I blinked. What? My father stood, shaking his head. You think you don't need us? Fine. Don't come begging when we're gone and you realize what you've lost. I stared, processing their words. They were threatening me with their inheritance. I almost laughed. Are you serious? My mother shrugged. If you don't want to be family, you won't be when we're gone. I should have been furious, but I felt relieved. It confirmed what I'd always suspected. Their love had strings attached. They weren't upset because they missed me or the kids. They were upset because they couldn't manipulate me anymore. I leaned against the counter. Keep your money, I don't need it. They weren't expecting that. My mother's eyes widened and my father's face twisted in frustration. You don't mean that, my mother said. You have kids. You could use the help, I shrugged. We're fine without you. They stood there, stunned. For the first time, they had no leverage. I opened the door. You should leave. My mom looked like she wanted to argue, but she just scoffed, grabbed her bag, and stormed out. My dad followed, muttering about my ingratitude. I watched them drive off. I thought that was the end, but I was wrong. 2 days later, my mother called, pleading for help. I thought they'd accepted I wouldn't play their games. Maybe they'd sulk, complain to their friends about my cruelty, and move on. I was mistaken. On the third morning, my phone rang. My mom's name appeared. I almost ignored it, but something urged me to pick up. She sounded frantic. Brian, you have to help us, I frowned. What's wrong? She exhaled shakily. Your father, he lost the car. I paused, confused. Lost it? It was taken, she whispered. That caught me off guard. My dad always acted like he had everything together, but a repossession meant they were in deep financial trouble. Then it hit me. The car they lost. It was my old car, the one I'd traded in when I bought my new one. I hadn't wanted the hassle of selling it, so I let the dealership take it. It was still in decent shape. Apparently, my dad had bought it back, thinking it was a steal. He didn't realize financing an older car with high interest wasn't a deal. And now, after all their arrogance, after trying to take my car, after dismissing my kids, they'd lost the very car they'd taken. Karma came quick. I exhaled slowly. What do you expect me to do? We need money, she said fast. A loan will repay you. I almost laughed. Days ago, they threatened to cut me out of their will for not obeying them. Now they needed my help. No, silence, then she stammered. No, Brian, we're your parents. And we raised you, we gave you everything, and now you abandon us. I sighed. You didn't need me when you sent my kids away. You didn't need me when you tried to take my car, but now you do. She started to speak, but I cut her off. Sell something, figure it out. I hung up before she could argue. I told my wife. She shook her head. They'll keep trying. They think they can guilt you into fixing their mess. She was right. The next day, my dad showed up at my house, unannounced. I opened the door, and there he was, fuming. I can't believe you, he snapped. After all we've done, you won't help your own parents. I crossed my arms. You mean the parents who threatened to disinherit me? He waved it off. That was different. We were upset. I shook my head. Not my problem. Brian, he said, his tone sharp. You don't want to do this. I stared at him. What are you threatening me with now? He clenched his jaw but said nothing. Then he tried another tactic. You owe us, son. We raised you for 18 years. You wouldn't be here without us. Something cold settled in my chest. So that's it? You think raising me means I'm in debt to you forever? He stared as if that logic was perfectly sound. I stepped back and half closed the door. I don't owe you anything. Leave. His face reddened. You think you're above us now? You think you don't need family? I smiled. Not the kind that manipulates me every chance they get. His eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. I shrugged. I doubt it. Then I shut the door in his face. I thought that was the end. But the next morning, my wife called me to the kitchen. She showed me her phone. You need to see this. It was my mother's social media page with a dramatic post about me. My mom's post was predictable, emotional, self-victimizing, and completely untrue. She painted herself as a devoted mother betrayed by her ungrateful son, left in hardship while I turned my back. She left out abandoning my kids. She didn't mention trying to take my car. Instead, she wrote about how I'd abandoned my family when they needed me most. People bought it. Comments flooded in from relatives and old friends offering sympathy. Some said they couldn't believe I'd treat my parents this way. Others called me selfish, saying family always comes first. A few suggested I'd grown arrogant, that success had changed me. I wasn't shocked, but it infuriated me. They'd spent years building an image as perfect, selfless parents. No one outside knew the truth. I considered responding, exposing their treatment of my kids, their manipulation, their financial recklessness. But I stopped. My parents fed on drama. They wanted me to engage. They wanted a public fight where they could play victims, so I stayed silent. I let them have their stage, then something unexpected happened. That afternoon, I got a message from my aunt, my mother's older sister. We weren't close, but she was always the family outlier, never buying into my parents' games. Her message was short. Call me now? Curious, I called. She answered immediately. Do you know what's really happening? I frowned. What do you mean? Your parents didn't just lose their car, they're in deep trouble. I leaned against the counter. How do you know? Your mom called me before that online sob story. She was crying about losing everything and needing money. When I pressed her, she got vague. So I looked into it. I braced myself. They're buried in debt, she said. Credit cards maxed, second mortgage, loans they can't pay. And from what I gathered, they were counting on you to save them. It added up. My dad always cared about appearances, wanting the best house, the newest gadgets, acting superior. My mom was the same, always showing off with lavish trips and designer outfits. They'd been living beyond their means for years. Now reality had caught up. I rubbed my temples. Why tell me this? She sighed. Because I know them, Brian. They won't stop at guilt. If they're desperate, they'll go further. She was right. My parents never faced consequences. If manipulation failed, they'd try something worse. I thanked her and hung up, processing. A week ago, I'd left my kids with their grandparents, thinking they were safe. Now I saw my parents' entire life was a facade, and they wanted to pull me into their chaos. But it was about to get worse. It was too convenient. The moment I took my kids back and refused their control, their lives unraveled. They lost their car. They were drowning in debt. They begged for money. I wasn't naive. I knew my parents. They were manipulative but not cunning. For them to be this desperate, something bigger was at play, so I dug deeper. It didn't take long to uncover. My aunt was right. They'd been living on credit for years, but what she didn't know was they'd planned for this. They'd banked on my financial stability. They assumed they could guilt me into supporting them. And worse, they weren't alone. Several relatives were involved. Distant uncles, cousins I barely knew had been subtly pushing family helps family for months. They weren't just bystanders. They expected to gain. My parents had promised that if things got bad, I'd step in. When I took my kids and cut them off, their plan fell apart. They never thought I'd say no. I didn't confront them right away. I wanted to see if they'd admit it. So my wife and I went to their house one last time. My mother acted like nothing was wrong. She smiled, offered us a seat, and rambled about trivial things. Redecorating plans, the neighbor's new car. My father sat arms crossed, waiting. I didn't play along. I got to the point. I know you lied, I said. I know this was a scheme. My mom's face barely shifted, but her eyes flickered. My dad sighed, exasperated. Who told you that? He muttered. I almost laughed. He didn't even deny it. My wife, who'd been quiet, suddenly stood. Before I could react, she grabbed the table's edge and flipped it, sending plates, cups, and bowls crashing. I'd never seen her like that. "You left my kids with a stranger," she yelled. "You lied, you schemed, and now you think we owe you," my mother gasped, hands covering her mouth. My father stood, but I stepped in front of him. "You'll never see our kids again," I said calmly. "You don't deserve it." My mother's face collapsed. "Brian, you're done," I said, "with me, my wife, my kids, and since you're so obsessed with my car, let me be clear, you'll never touch it." My father's jaw tightened. He hated losing. I didn't let them respond. I took my wife's hand and we walked out. They called, texted, sent relatives to plead, but it was done. If you enjoyed this intense tale of family drama, betrayal, and standing firm, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories like this. Your support means everything and helps this channel grow. Share in the comments what you'd have done in my shoes. Would you have forgiven them? Or would you have taken a stand like I did?